Hey, what up? This pretty much is going to be random thoughts for this March 5th, 2009. First off, I'm going to pretty much give my thoughts on some topics and stuff that happened and transpired this Monday night on Raw. Look at some stuff that's already been announced for WrestleMania 25. A Ric Flair note, and another thing I'm going to talk about is 3 hip-hop CDs that I just recently got that 2 of them are already going to say I recommend, the other one not so, but a good listen. And the other thing I'm going to talk about is a NFL topic, which is T.O. getting cut by the Cowboys. Now, first let me get to the wrestling topics and pretty much some thoughts of this past Monday night's Raw, at least some stuff that transpired that led to some announcements already for matches for WrestleMania 25. And definitely one thing that was a complete swerve to us fans that none of us ever thought we were going to see or thought we would see. First off, let me get to that, which, okay, a lot of us already expected to be able to see a John Cena versus Edge world title match, one-on-one match at WrestleMania. It looked like that pretty much was intact. And it looked like it was pretty much that's what it was going to lead to. But WWE threw a complete swerve here. They had Edge versus John Cena wrestle each other on Monday Night Raw, which I gotta say was a pretty good, solid match. Good for a TV match. It was good. A little build up, and a lot of people that were watching probably like, okay, this is like, showcasing and previewing what these two are gonna be able to do against each other for WrestleMania, but at the same time holding a little back so it would not be spoiling too much for WrestleMania. And then they have Vicky Guerrero come out there, and she pretty much that's when the swerve happens. Edge is on the ramp, and now it's going to be Edge versus Big Show for the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania in a one-on-one match. And now they could possibly go in a couple routes in here. They possibly go a route of having Big Show versus John Cena next week or right before WrestleMania in a one-on-one match for the #1 contendership for the World Heavyweight title, or just add John Cena into it and change it into a triple threat, because pretty much ever since WrestleMania 20, every single year for the most part, I think, they've always had a triple threat match. So they possibly could just have another triple threat match. And if they have a triple threat match with Edge versus John Cena versus Big Show, it'll be a great way to have Edge still hold on to the title, because he will not have to pin John Cena. John Cena will not have to take the fall. Big Show will. And it would be a way to let Edge keep a hold of the title and kind of give that title a little prestige and have Edge at least have somewhat of a decent reign with it, instead of him just dropping it pretty much a month and a half after he won it. Since for the most part it looks like the Triple H and Randy Orton match, which I gotta say, I'm one of those people that did say before, like, that were on the side saying, why are we getting Triple H versus Randy Orton? We've seen it so many times, but I've kind of changed my opinion on that, because I got to say, they've been doing an excellent job as far as the storyline with Triple H and Randy Orton, adding in the things with Triple H being married with Stephanie. Thankfully, they're finally actually acknowledging that on TV, and they've just been building it up very good. Orton's been doing good as a heel. I would say he's not the best heel in WWE right now, because I'll get to that part right next. But like I say, they've been doing a very good job building it up, and at the same point, if they have, the triple threat with Edge versus Big Show versus Cena, or if they just have the one-on-one match with Edge versus Big Show, it will not, overshadow the Triple H versus Randy Orton match, because I think that's obviously going to be the match that is going to get the more, presence on TV as far as storyline-wise, and that's what they're doing anyway right now, kind of, building the World Heavyweight title on the SmackDown brand, make that more prestigious than the not the World Heavyweight title on SmackDown, the WWE title on SmackDown over the World Heavyweight title on Raw, at least for this moment right now, because they got, pretty much all the champions on Raw. Now they might do one thing, which kind of seems like they're at least maybe building to maybe unifying the tag titles at WrestleMania. Because they haven't really had a tag title match at WrestleMania, I think, in a little while, which would be good to see. And I like to see Miz and Morrison, if they do go the route of having a unification of the tag titles, I like to see Miz and Morrison be the team to unify the tag titles. Maybe a unification of the women's titles, because it's completely pointless to have 2 women's titles with WWE, especially since both of the WWE women's divisions, the one on Raw and the one on SmackDown, are pretty weak. And the point that if they combine the women's wrestlers and put them all on one show and let them compete against one title, then you actually probably would have a strong women's division. I mean, in that case, with Gail Kim about to return, You're going to actually be able to, if they do that, you'll have, Gail Kim versus Beth Phoenix. Gail and Melina would be excellent. Gail and Mickie James. And, then, I think Michelle McCool, she's not the worst women's wrestler. But I think, if they combined it, maybe with, competing against some of the women on Raw, she might be able to improve in the ring, somewhat. And, if they have Gail Kim and her in a feud on SmackDown, that'll possibly, Gail's one of those women's wrestlers that can be in there with anyone and pretty much put on a good match. So, in that point, they'll probably, do that. But it does look like they're kind of like at least teasing the unification of the titles, which would be good to see. So if they would go that route, I would kind of expect them to do one thing, like have the women's title on one brand, then have the tag titles on the other. So, we'll say, like, so they can kind of say, hey, we got an exclusive title only to our brand, and that's the only title of that type on, any of the WWE brands. They could possibly do that, which would be kind of interesting to see. Now let me get to the person I think is doing the best job as a heel right now, which is Chris Jericho. I'm really loving this Legends storyline that they got going on with the weeks of build-up to WrestleMania, and they're having all these legends come out there. I really enjoyed the Chris Jericho and Ricky Steamboat thing, not on this past Monday Night Raw, but the week before. And the Jimmy Snuka thing, even though it was very predictable what was going to happen, it was at least pretty good and enjoyable. And Chris Jericho is one of those very few heels in a long time that's getting actually legitimate heel heat from the crowd. I mean, he's getting like, fuck you chants, you suck. And, they are really, against Chris Jericho, which I haven't seen any heel in, I guess, a couple years actually be able to get that much heel heat. And it's, pretty great to see Chris Jericho doing. He's doing a very good job. Now, there have been rumors of possible Chris Jericho versus Hulk Hogan match at WrestleMania, but it looks like that might not happen, or at least news-wise it doesn't look like it's going to happen, because apparently it has been reported that, I think last week, Hulk Hogan had to have back surgery. So unless that's a made-up story to kind of, swerve us fans to thinking, Hogan's not going to be able to be at WrestleMania, then, I don't see Chris Jericho taking him on. Now, another rumor, which I hope they don't go this route, which has been a rumor that they might have Chris Jericho versus Jerry the King Lawler, which I think, that would be something you should do on Raw before WrestleMania, building up to, him taking on a, big legend like a Hogan or a Stone Cold Steve Austin, and not have him against WrestleMania. Because if they have Jerry the King Lawler versus Chris Jericho at WrestleMania, that's going to really, this storyline is going to fall flat. It's going to be like, what was the whole point of this? So he can take on Jerry the King Lawler. I'm hoping they don't go that route. I don't think they will, because they're building this legend storyline up with Chris Jericho to such a high degree that I don't think they're going to, do something stupid like that. Now, with Hogan, if he has had back surgery and that's not a swerve to us fans, then they're obviously not going to have Chris Jericho versus Hogan. Now, a lot of people are maybe speculating that they might have Chris Jericho versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. But another thing, like, you got to think is what they're going to do with with John Cena. If he's not going to be in a title match and they don't got a match for him, then obviously if you got Steve Austin able to have one last match and be able to have a match at WrestleMania, then you're obviously going to want to go with the match that's going to be the biggest draw, which is John Cena versus Stone Cold Steve Austin match. Even though, the legend storyline has been built up pretty good, I think, in that case, if Cena's not in a title match, I think, as bad as it is to say, Chris Jericho might have to be sacrificed and have the Jerry Lawler thing over, over him taking on Austin, so you have the big draw match for WrestleMania, which is the one thing I don't think you really have this year for WrestleMania, is a big match that, everyone's looking forward to. Now, I gotta say, they're doing good with Triple H and Orton, but we've seen it so many times, but it is a different dynamic with the storyline, but I don't think it's one of those matches that every fan's like, God, I cannot wait to see this. Like, if they were doing, Austin versus Jericho, or Cena versus Austin, or, Hogan versus one of them two, that would be a match I think, people would really be like, damn, I got to see this. I don't think, WrestleMania at this point has a must-see match. And the Money in the Bank participants already, you got CM Punk, you got Mark Henry, and you got Kane, which I was damn sure on Monday Night Raw that they were going to have Rey Mysterio win and Rey Mysterio qualify, but now you got Kane and Mark Henry in there, and I'm not going to spoil, two other people already know that are already in it, so it's 5 people in it so far, so the 5 people that are in it already, I'm not going to spoil the final 2 that some people don't know. If you haven't read the SmackDown spoilers for this week and next week, I'm not going to spoil it, but I will not be surprised that if the winner of the Money in the Bank ladder match at this WrestleMania 25 isn't going to be one of those times. Finally, they've been doing this match since 21, I think, and I think this year is going to be the year that the person that wins it is just going to cash it in and not win the title, which I think would be one of those things they need to do at some point, because then if they keep having everyone that wins the Money in the Bank and have them cash in and win the world title, then it's going to be so predictable every time, they're going to say, oh, this person's going to definitely win the world title. That's how it's built up right now. And then, if they go the route of the person actually winning the Money in the Bank and not winning it, then people are like, okay, maybe not every person that wins this is going to win the World Heavyweight Championship, which I kind of see them maybe going that route. Now, the Ric Flair note that I wanted to get on was Ric Flair is going to be making his second Ring of Honor appearance this Friday, June 12th of this year in Manassas, Virginia. There's possibly a chance I might be going to this show. Manassas is a little ways out there for me. It's probably with traffic, about 4 to maybe 4.5 hours. But, with Ric Flair being there in a Ring of Honor show, I probably might go to this show. And, Ric Flair is always one of my favorite wrestlers. He's one of those wrestlers that I always want to meet at some point. And there is possibly a chance I might be going with this show because a couple of my friends are thinking of going as well. So, possibly a chance, I'm not completely 100% sure yet, but there's probably a chance I might be going to the Ring of Honor show on June 12th. So, obviously, if I go to that show, after the show, I'll give my thoughts on that after the show happens. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about was T.O. getting cut by the Dallas Cowboys, which this came out of nowhere. Now, T.O., I know a lot of people hate T.O., think he's too cocky, think he's too arrogant. Now, I'm one of those people that have always been a T.O. fan. Now, I'm not going to admit that he's not cocky and arrogant, because I know he is, but that's his whole character towards him. And I've been a fan of him ever since his years in San Francisco, followed him to Philadelphia. I thought he did good there up until, the whole fiasco with him and Donovan McNabb. And I thought he was doing pretty good with the Dallas Cowboys. And, T.O. is one of those players that, okay, I'm going to admit, he has dropped balls. He's dropped, a number of balls in games. But he's one of those guys that, so many players in the NFL, as far as wide receivers, always drop balls. But when T.O. drops a ball, so many people hate him. They, point out, every single ball he drops, hey, did you see him drop that ball? You see him drop that ball. And so many people hate him. But he's kind of built up this, attitude that he's had, backstage, behind the scenes, and sometimes translate to the field as well during his career that, I think, some teams are obviously going to pick him up. Now, some teams that desperately need someone like T.O. is like the Raiders or the Lions, especially the Lions. I mean, the Lions were 0-16. Hell, if T.O. does anything to mess that team up, he's not going to be able to mess them up any more than what they were. They probably would do a whole lot better if they had someone like T.O. Now, a team I would like to see him go to is probably like the Colts or the New York Giants, but I think those two teams are doing good already by themselves. That I don't know if T.O.'s worth the risk. Now, one team I think that T.O. could go to, and I think he would do a great job with, and it would be worth the risk. And I think this team possibly could go very far in the playoffs, and possibly might even win a Super Bowl if T.O. goes to this team. Is the San Diego Chargers, and if he goes to the Chargers, I think he would definitely be a good fit there, and I think he would, definitely help that team out a lot and make them go very far in the playoffs. And, the Chargers did good this past year, but I think they need that one more person and take them to the next level, and I think T.O. could be that type of player to do that. Now, let me get to 3 hip-hop CDs that I wanted to discuss and kind of give my quick thoughts on. And the first one is this hip-hop CD, Sunrise Above, Prisoners of War. Excellent CD. I would recommend this to any hip-hop fan, especially if you like hip-hop artists like Dead Prez and Immortal Technique. He's that type of rapper. He's like a political rapper like Immortal Technique in Paris, and he does an excellent job on the CD. Very good production value on the CD. Very good lyrical content. If I had to give it a score, I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. And the next CD, and I would definitely recommend that one. The next CD is Mass Movements. Mass Movements, the album. It's pretty much a compilation album that has a lot of artists from the Boston, Massachusetts area or the Boston area. It has a couple other artists as well. Some members of the Wu-Tang Clan and Ill Bill is on it as well. And it's one of those CDs that I would say It's good to check out, but it's not one of those CDs that I would say should be on your top priority list of must buy in the CD, unless you're a big fan of some of the guys like Ill Bill and Slain, and you like a lot of the artists from that area of Boston. And it's definitely this CD. I definitely got to say showcased that Boston is starting to be one of those hotbeds of hip hop, which one of those places I would really not expect to be like a hotbed of hip hop, but this CD kind of showcased that they are. Now, like I said, it's not a must buy, but it was a good CD. This one I'll probably give about a 3.5 out of 5, maybe a 4 if lucky, but it's not one of those CDs I would say it's a must buy. Now the next one is one that I would recommend as well, which is the new NASA CD, which is short for North America, South America, the Spiritual Apollo. And this CD right here, I think, could be possibly one of those CDs that, even if you're not a hip-hop fan, you could get into and enjoy. Now, pretty much it's like a very alternative type of hip-hop sound. I would say this is probably the closest, I think, in this era of hip-hop that we're going to get to, like the alternative great CDs like the Fugees, The Score, or any of the Tribe Called Quest CDs, or the early Outkast stuff. I think this is closest of this era of hip-hop that will get to that. And I think, this CD right here was like the type of alternative hip-hop that I think Kanye West was trying to go for on his 808s and Heartbreaks, but completely failed with, overusing the audio tuner, and, the content on it wasn't that good as well. But this CD right here, NASA, Spiritual Apollo, I definitely recommend it. I would give it, easily 4 out of 5, possibly even 4.5 out of 5. It's definitely a CD I would recommend, to all hip-hop fans. It's definitely a CD I would recommend to even people if you're not a hip-hop fan. And these 3 CDs I got from undergroundhiphop.com, and if you just want to check out a little sample of the CD, I'll put the links in the descriptions for all 3 CDs, and links to where you can buy them on the site as well, because I gotta say that site right there is probably one of the most reliable hip-hop sites out there right now as far as ordering it. You get them very quick. I gotta say, probably, I really don't order too much online, but I order stuff off of undergroundhiphop.com and rohwrestling.com, because I think those are the 2 places that are very reliable at you getting your stuff very quick. And what I mean very quick is, like, after they get your order, you'll pretty much get it within the next 3 or 4 days. That's how quick it is. And like I said, I'll put the links in the description of those CDs. And like I said, I would recommend the first CD, Sunrise Above, Prisoners of War. Definitely would recommend that. Must buy right there. Like I said, with the Mass Movement CD, not a must buy, but it's a good listen. And the last one, NASA Spiritual Apollo, I would recommend that one in the Sunrise Above, Prisoners of War CD. Both of them are very good. And just want to get my thoughts on those 3 hip-hop CDs. Get my thoughts on some stuff that happened this past Monday night on Raw. Stuff that looks like it's already, a little preview to WrestleMania 25 with some of the matches already announced. And, the surprising cut of Terrell Owens from the Cowboys. Definitely didn't expect the Cowboys to cut T.O. from the lineup. Hopefully, T.O. goes to some team. And T.O. is one of those players. Obviously, he has, not the best reputation behind the scenes, but I've always been a fan of him. The stuff he's done behind the scenes hasn't really affected me as not liking him as a player or anything, but I'm not going to lie here and say that he isn't, doesn't have an attitude behind the scenes, but he's one of those players that, if some team needs him and needs a player to go to the next level, then I think T.O. could possibly be that type of player. Like I said, the Chargers, I think, would be a perfect team for him to go to. Maybe Atlanta. Atlanta definitely needs someone to take him to the next level. Maybe the Buccaneers. The Colts and Giants are 2 teams I would kind of like to see him go to, but I don't know if those 2 teams right there would take the risk of signing T.O. to their lineup, and just want to get my thoughts out on that. And yeah, that's it. Peace. One last thing I just want to add, I'm probably going to be doing a Q&A this Saturday or Sunday, so if you've got any questions, just send them in through a comment on my channel or through a personal message. They can be, wrestling related, music related, hip-hop. Now, I listen to other stuff than hip-hop, but hip-hop's the main origin of music that I listen to a lot. And there's, other stuff, sports, pretty much anything that you want to ask, just, send it through a comment on my channel or through a personal message, even if you want to add it on this video. But like I said, I prefer it on, my channel, a comment on my channel or through a personal message. And